it was pretty difficult to be told that she hadn't boarded any flight. Sorry. She told her sister and I that she was, planning these other hikes and then would be heading home and would see her on the 21st, and we haven't heard or seen her since. It was immediately surreal. You hear about stuff like all the time, but you never think it's going to happen to your family. It's definitely my sister, it's definitely Sally in that video. It's bizarre that she was filmed like that on this same trip that she's now disappeared on.
Amy, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, you logging on from Australia. Can you tell us a little bit about Sally beyond what's known in the headlines and in news articles?
She's very smart, resilient girl. She loves traveling and hiking. She's taken these solo trips for years since she's turned 18 and become an adult. She's very passionate about art and, again, hiking, mostly about nature. That's pretty much like how she is as a person. She's been passionate about that for as long as I can remember.
So these solo trips, there's nothing new to the family, is it?
No.
Was this her first trip abroad, or has she made other trips in the past?
No, she's made plenty of overseas trips in the past, all being solo. She loves solo traveling. She loves meeting new people. And she's taken this trip to Nevada solo a couple of times a year in the last 3 or 4 years. So this is a trip that she does quite frequently.
Okay, and what draws her back to Nevada, in particular the Las Vegas area?
Her favorite thing about Nevada is the desert, not so much as, other like partying reasons that most people travel to Vegas. For her, it's all about the desert and nature and hiking. It's her favorite part about Nevada.
And did Sally speak to you at all about her recent trip? Maybe did she describe how excited she was about it?
Yeah, same as always. She told me a few months ago that she was planning on going again because she'd just been late last year in December. Um, and like I said, she makes this trip multiple times a year for 2 weeks or so. She was excited to go. As soon as she booked her flight, she told me about her plans and her travel dates and things like that. And then, yeah, she went on the trip and we heard from her throughout the trip. She was updating me on hikes she was doing, sends me photos, sends her other sister photos, her friends photos, and constant updates. And we had those constant updates until that last day, which was June 20th.
And from the photos, what some of the locations that she visited in the Nevada area?
She visited Lone Mountain. She'd done that hike quite a few times in her previous trips as well. She'd visited Mount Charleston. She just also has been there on her previous trips as well. These not her first time going to these places as well, which I know there was a lot of confusion in the public if she was new to these areas or not. She definitely wasn't. And she did get around like she was a local and loves walking no matter the distance. She's that person, when we're out and about, like, let's just walk there. And it could be a couple of hours walk and you're like, you just don't want to walk that distance. So those kinds of things aren't unusual for her. Um, and yeah, and those were the photos I received from her throughout her trip. And she told her sister and I that she was, planning these other hikes and then would be heading home and would see her on the 21st, and we haven't heard or seen her since.
When was the last, or what was the last conversation you had with Sally?
The last conversation I had with her it would have been on the 19th in Australia, so the 18th, I think, in the US. And she told me like that she was having a great time because I like to hear from her at least once or twice a day while she's on these trips. Told me she was having a great time, couldn't wait to get home. She had plans with Lauren and I, her other sister. And yeah, so the last message that she'd sent was to her best friend, who's also in Australia, and that's when she said, like, I'm going on this hike and I'll be flying home tomorrow.
And at what point did you and your sister Lauren realize that something was just not right?
So obviously with the time difference in Australia, it got to the 21st here in Australia, and I was actually sleeping at Lauren's house, and I said to her, "Wasn't Sally supposed to be home today?" But, with the time difference and the date differences, it can, get confusing, and I couldn't remember if she was maybe due home on the 22nd in Australia and she was leaving Nevada on the 21st. And she said, "Yeah, I think so, or it's possibly gonna be tomorrow, the 22nd." And, I've never had a an odd gut feeling on any of her past trips, and for some reason that night I just was kinda like, "Okay," and I messaged my dad because she lives with our dad, asked if she was home yet, and he said he hadn't heard from her either, and it was the very next morning that I don't know what came over me, I was like, "Well, we have to report her missing." Um, and, it's easy to, maybe mix up, like I said, with the time difference and the dates, but for some reason, I don't know, I just was like, "We have to report her missing." And we went to the police station that morning, reported her missing straight away, and they very quickly actioned it and got it to Interpol and got it to, Metro Police in Vegas. So thankfully, those that process did go through very quickly because, our main concern was if she'd boarded her flight or not, because I'd messaged her, and obviously if you message someone when they're on a flight or something, the message isn't gonna deliver, and it had just said sent. And I was like, "Well, maybe, it's possible she is just on her flight still," because it is a long flight back to Australia. And then the police, when we reported her missing that morning, they confirmed with immigration that she hadn't boarded any flights to Australia or domestically in the US. So it became concerning immediately after we knew that.
And what was your and your family's initial reactions when you learned from authorities that your sister did not board any international or domestic flights on the day she was supposed to fly out?
It was immediately surreal um, because, you hear about stuff like all the time, but you never think it's going to happen to your family. Um, it was pretty difficult to sorry. It was pretty difficult to be told that she hadn't boarded any flights, because, you know, when we were at the police station, I was thinking, "Oh, they're gonna tell us she boarded her flight. She must be on her flight still," because in your heart, that is the only explanation that you can really rationalize that, you're gonna see your sister or your family member soon. And, when they confirmed that she hadn't, it was immediate fear, and just nothing felt real from that moment, and has not felt real even to today, and it's been nearly a month. So, yeah.
Mhm. And from her final day in Nevada, did you know anything about her plans of that day on the 20th?
So she messaged her best friend that day, saying that she was going on a hike and that she would be flying home tomorrow, which was the next day, which was the 21st. I didn't get those messages. That her best friend had heard from her and got those messages, and that was the last that we heard.
And have you guys been in contact with her best friend?
Yeah, he's actually he's a very close family friend of ours as well. So, he's basically a part of our family. So, immediately we spoke to him as well, and he's been close with us for about 20 years, so he's a dear friend of our family.
And when you guys saw the text exchange between your sister and her best friend, was there any concerns in the language she was probably using in her text?
No, everything was normal, which again, I even felt silly when I was first driving to the police station to report her missing, and my actual first thought was she's gonna be so annoyed when she finds out that we've gone to this length to report her missing. And, my sister and I were having a laugh, like, she's gonna be really annoyed when she finds out we've gone to this length just because we haven't heard from her. Maybe she just mixed up the time or something, and it obviously became very real very quickly.
I read on an article that police have described your sister as possibly being in a severe emotional distress or in need of medical assistance. Do you think that may be the case?
No, she does struggle with mental health. That it in itself is common in this day and age with people. Do I think it has anything to do with what's happened now? No, I don't. Um, at this point, anything is a possibility. We've obviously, come to a bit of a standstill because her scent was on the trail and she hasn't been seen on any CCTV footage or anything since. So it's really hard to say.
Have you guys been able to determine if Sally went on the hike alone or she went with someone?
We don't know. We assume that she went on her own, but again, it's really hard to say. We don't know.
And have you been able to get in contact with the staff or anyone who may have been staying at the hostel where your sister had been staying?
I believe this I haven't personally, my family hasn't personally. We didn't, you know, speak with them. The police had already done that. And they spoke with, I'm not sure if it was the owner or who works at reception at the hostel itself, but they confirmed that she checked out online and left her luggage with the hostel staff. I'm assuming because her flight was later that night, and that's also a normal thing to do is leave your luggage at your accommodation if you want to head out for the day. Um, so it's really difficult to try and piece anything together.
Had Sally been previously, has she stayed at that hostel before? Because I
Yeah,
know you told me she's made numerous trips to Nevada.
yeah, she's stayed at that hostel quite a few times.
There's a video circulating on social media, on Instagram in particular, where a man approaches your sister outside a convenience store and she's seen smoking a cigarette. Have you watched that footage?
Yes, I've seen it. Um, I saw it for the first time when I was in Vegas. It was very difficult to see. At first, I thought that someone had like AI'd a video out of a photo of her or something because the way the video starts is a little odd. Um, it's definitely my sister. It's definitely Sally in that video. Um, it's bizarre that she was filmed like that on this same trip that she's now disappeared on. I think, in my opinion, it just feels more like a coincidence than anything, than the video having actually anything to do with it. She did tell her sister and I that she was filmed in the same kind of way on meta glasses on a previous trip. She messaged Lauren saying, I think someone just filmed me on their meta glasses. So it's not the first time it's happened to her either. Um, it's very, you know, it's not nice that it's happened obviously on in this circumstance, but whether it has anything to do with it, I don't know.
Right. And have you guys been able to determine when that video was recorded?
Yeah, so we actually obtained the footage from the man who filmed it. And the metadata on that video confirmed that it was filmed on that trip on that 3 or 4 days before she went missing. So all of that's already been confirmed.
When you saw the video, did anything seem off about it? Maybe anything about Sally's body language, anything she made that may have stood out in terms of what she was wearing or acting?
No, that's everything in her behavior and the way she was standing, what she was, that's all normal. That was all normal.
I also came across a post on the same Instagram page where they shared a detail about this distinctive amber colored pendant that your sister wears. Can you talk to us about that and its significance?
Hmm. So that's a pendant that Lauren brought her for Christmas last year. She treasures that pendant dearly, and every time I see my sister, she always is wearing it. Um, and, initially that wasn't released to the public. Obviously, it's a live investigation, not everything can be shared with the public. Um, and we were at the understanding, as confirmed by Metro, that pendant wasn't in her luggage, so we could only assume that she had it on her at the time. Yesterday, we actually found out the pendant was in her luggage, so that's actually redundant now. Um, she didn't have the pendant on her; it was in her luggage. So all that info that got released, it's not really relevant because we will have the pendant now. It's with her luggage with Metro, so there's not really anything else to comment on it.
Amy, is there one final message you want to send to our viewers or the law enforcement officials who are actively searching for your sister?
Yeah, look, my family and I appreciate we have, had so many Vegas locals reach out to us, taking their own time out to go hiking, taking their drones out, and I can't express my gratitude enough, like from my family as well. The fact that people are taking their own time to go and look for my sister means the world, especially, we're in Australia, so, it adds an unimaginable level of difficulty to this already horrific situation. And, if anyone even thinks that they saw her or does know that they saw her, we can only ask, please, please come forward. Um, but yeah, we are very grateful to the Vegas community. Like, locals have all been amazing and extremely supportive.
Well, Amy, again, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.